And to trending now. Well, Prince Harry and wife Meghan Markle, the actress, have fled their duties in Britain and now live in Los Angeles, where they've been handing out food packages in West Hollywood during the coronavirus crisis. But they've taken time out to send a bitter letter to 4 British tabloids, including the Daily Mail and The Sun, saying they'll never deal with their journalists again. There will be no corroboration and zero engagement, they say. Well, the spokesman says what they won't do is offer themselves up as currency for an economy of clickbait and distortion. Ironically, perhaps, these very sensitive runaway royals add that it is gravely concerning that an influential slice of the media has sought to insulate themselves from taking accountability for what they say. Joining me is Daisy Cousens, a YouTube star with her own video channel. Check it out. Daisy Cousens, thanks for joining me. Is this letter a smart move?
No, absolutely not, Andrew. Not the least because it makes them look incredibly petty and a bit spiteful. But it is very revealing, Andrew, of what I think is possibly Meghan Markle's grand plan. Now, the thing is, with splitting from the royal family, this means that they are no longer beholden to be represented by the royal family's official taxpayer-funded office for publicity. So they now have themselves a new publicity representative, which is a US company called Sunshine Sachs, which generally represents film and television stars, which is right up Meghan's alley, of course. Now, this means that they can handle their media and their communications like any other Hollywood celebrity would, which is they're allowed to say stuff directly on social media, and they can curate which outlets have contact with them very, very carefully, which they could not do as royals because they were beholden to the entirety of the media, not a lot of selection there. So, Andrew, now, if you couple the fact they can handle their media like movie stars with the fact that they've moved back to Los Angeles, even though Meghan Markle so detests living in the same country as Donald Trump, you add to that the fact that Harry was shilling for Meghan with the CEO of Disney late last year to get her into a little voiceover gig, which I believe she eventually got. And I think we are seeing here the circular direction that Meghan has possibly been leading Harry in right from the get-go, which is back to Los Angeles, away from the royal family, back to Hollywood, back to being a commercial celebrity, but with a much, much bigger profile now than she ever had playing the juvenile lead on Suits.
That's true too. And Harry then, the Prince of the royal family of Great Britain, is denied access to millions and millions and millions of readers of those tabloids. And I didn't understand why they sent it in the first place. All they did in saying we're not going to deal with you is giving the tabloids another story about the royals. I mean, it's so extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of strange, isn't it? You'd think if they wanted to really cut ties with those tabloids, then they'd cut ties. They do it very quietly and very quickly with as little pomp and circumstance as possible. But then again, you know, we've got to remember the sort of, you know, egomaniacal progressive streak that a lot of them have. They have to show that they're sort of moral and righteous, etc., etc. But I guess in terms of being moral and righteous, we must give them credit, if we have to, for helping out the less fortunate during this coronavirus crisis. They are at least, you know, actioning and putting their money where their mouths are in that respect, which is a good thing.
Yes, it is. And West Hollywood, God knows, is a centre of suffering, and so why not go there? The ABC, the national broadcaster, is, in my opinion, Daisy, a public menace now because it is so big, so biased and almost totally unaccountable. Not one ABC presenter or journalist has acknowledged a shameful fact about the ABC, that it for years waged a vendetta against Cardinal George Pell, a witch hunt that put that man in jail for a year for crimes against children he could not possibly have committed. But yesterday on Insiders, one panellist, Greg Sheridan of the Australian newspaper, finally said on the ABC what not a single ABC staffer had publicly admitted. Here he is.
I want to be very unpopular and raise a very difficult issue. I think the ABC was tremendously unfair to George Pell over the last 5 or 6 years, and I think the leadership needs to reflect on this. In particular, the point I'd make is that the effect of the ABC, even if not its intent, is very often monolithic. The current affairs and news take a set against someone. All the non-specialist journalists follow the lead of their specialist colleagues. And then you get the comedy and satire programs. Tim Minchin singing Come Home Cardinal Pell with its line, I think you're scum. Now, I think that is wrong, and the ABC is so powerful that it needs to do better in terms of internal balance. With great power comes great responsibility, and I think this beyond the culture wars, they need to reflect on the disparity in power between this giant corporation and a single individual they attack.
Well said, Daisy.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's absolutely to be commended for coming out and saying that, simply because he would have known the public backlash that he would have gotten, which he did. I mean, not just, saying, taboo things on the ABC, but actively criticising the ABC while on the ABC. I mean, I can't think of a single voice on the ABC over the past several years who's even sniffed at an opposing view to the burn the witch narrative when it comes to Cardinal Pell. And I think it's fabulous that they finally got a little bit of balance on that show with someone giving some sort of different perspective.
Well, I think you might be on your own in that if you were put in a room of ABC types, because, Daisy, I now want to show you exactly the ABC groupthink that Greg Sheridan was condemning there. Not one presenter I know of admitted that Sheridan has a point. Instead, up to a dozen piled in on him. The ABC's chief Pell persecutor, Louise Milligan, claimed that an ABC audit shows that this claim of an ABC pylon was errant nonsense, that ABC staff knew it was a nonsense, and this was just another ramble from a mate of Pell's. Longtime ABC presenter Quentin Dempster tweeted Greg Sheridan saying the ABC had been unfair to George Pell was just a News Corp provocateur, and this was the pot calling the kettle black. Other ABC staff, Daisy, like Annabelle Crabb, ignored completely the substance of Sheridan's argument and said, aha, Sheridan wrongly implied, he never said this, by the way, wrongly implied that Tim Minchin's song calling Pell scum was commissioned by the ABC. Well, you heard the grab, he didn't say that. And that was, of course, Annabelle ignoring the fact that a couple of ABC websites, in fact, still promote and carry Minchin's video, which vilely abuses George Pell. Have a listen.
With all due respect, dude, I think you're scum, and I reckon you should come home, Cardinal Pell. We know you're not fit.
Okay, this pylon, Daisy, today, which also included ABC presenters Sarah McDonald, I don't know where they got that person from, and Virginia Trioli, didn't that exactly prove Sheridan's point, that the ABC is a vast state-funded media outfit which persecutes George Pell and anyone who speaks up for him?
Well, yes, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Andrew. This seemed to me to be very much a case of methinks they doth protest too much. They accusations for pylon from Greg Sheridan were greeted with a pylon. I think that's pretty self-explanatory there. But the thing is, Andrew, I reckon in all of this, we're kind of missing the forest for the trees. I think you and I and others who agree with us should be very, very pleased with all this outrage at insiders at the moment, because it indicates quite clearly that there are views being expressed there that are not left-wing. They're not that usual left-wing narrative. And certainly over the last few weeks, Andrew, I've been paying attention to Twitter on this. There have been an awful lot of former ABC devotees amongst the Twitterati who've been complaining that the views on the show are just too right-wing for them. There was one woman who said that it might as well be a Sky News panel, dare I say. And perhaps, Andrew, here's my very happy theory here. Perhaps since the great David Spears has been brought on as host of Insiders, perhaps
I don't want you to say that, Daisy. No, I don't want you to say that, because David is actually slightly left of centre. I really like David. I respect him enormously. He went over there thinking more balance, because that's the kind of guy he is. If you start saying that, Daisy, they're going to go him. And in fact, Wayne Swan, the former Labor Treasurer, still Labor MP, was tweeting, hey, listen, the panels have got bias now, as in, they're balanced. They're not all left-wingers now. And so you just put the moz on him, Daisy. They're going to go in.
Oh my goodness! Well, I should probably take it back then, because he's doing, I think, such good with that show. And I actually called Wayne Swan out on that comment he made. I said that actually, no, this is the first time there's been balance on those ABC panels for a while. And what people are realising is that balance means being exposed to some opinions that you perhaps don't agree with, and the ABC devotees just don't seem to like it. Well, that's tough on them, I say.
No, again, I'm afraid you're wrong, Daisy. On the ABC, balance doesn't mean hearing opinions you don't agree with. It means hearing the opinions you do agree with, but with a balance. Male, female, gay, straight, black, white. Please, I mean, I've tried to tutor you for ages and you still don't get what balance really means. Same views, different faces. Thank you.